This is Chapter 7, Lesson 4, Solve and Write Multiplication Equations. So like we've talked about through this entire chapter, if I'm solving multiplication equations, I want to use the inverse of that. The inverse of multiplication is division. Remember, inverse means opposite. Okay, so on page 552, we are going to do A, B, C. So my first problem is 3x equals 15. Remember, whenever you have a number next to a variable like that, that means multiplication. And I want to solve this using the inverse of multiplication. So what that means is, if it's being times 3, I want to divide both sides by 3. You can write it like that, or you could write divide by 3 on both sides. Either way, you get it. 3 divided by 3 gives me 1, and I'm left with just x equals 15 divided by 3 is 5. When I go to check, 3 times 5 is 15, so I did it correctly. My next example, 8 equals 4x. Remember, it's 4 times x, so I want to divide both sides by 4. Because I want to get rid of I want the x to be all alone by itself. 4 divided by 4 is 1, and I'm left with just x. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So my answer is 2. So when I go to check, 4 times 2 should give me 8, and it does. And my last example, 2x equals 14. I look to the side that the x is on. I notice that it's 2 times x, so I'm going to want to divide both sides by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. Remember, there's always that imaginary 1 in front of my x. That's why I want it to be down to 1. So I'm left with just x. 14 divided by 2 is 7. If you wanted to leave that imaginary 1 in front of the x there, that's okay. I wouldn't mark that wrong. So when I go to solve this and make sure it makes sense, I'm saying that 2 times 7 should give me 14. And it does, so I know I did it correctly. Just like we talked about, division is the inverse of multiplication. So I have a division property of equality now, because I need to use that inverse. So when you solve an equation by dividing both sides of the equation by the same number, you are using the division property of equality. That's another important vocabulary word you're going to want to know. So here's an example. In algebra, 3 times x equals 12, just like those problems we were solving, I want to divide both sides by 3 to solve it, to give me 4. And that's called the division property of equality. Your code word for this lesson is Hollywood.